I clone, but there he is.
Hey guys, how's it going?
You
Hey.
Oh, Mr. Bean
my
is with us today. Um, okay, so this week I'm just going to review some of the progress that's been made. I don't have any updates for you right now, but we do have a big update coming. I'm right on schedule actually, and I think I'm going to
You're
finish in
lagging.
like 2 or 3 more days, and then of course a lot of testing. And I if the testing goes well, then I think I'll have the update for you Friday. But I just want to make sure that everything's like really really solid, so that when you get the update, I just want everything to be completely seamless for you. This fixes a few problems for us. Last week we talked about in great detail. We talked about the lighting issue that was appearing on AMD cards, and this is all about invocation groups, and basically that problem was solved. And then we had a very similar problem was occurring with the terrain material system, which you can see here, where the shader just gets
you're not
confused.
you're not streaming anything or anything. I
You
can.
are lagging
Oh,
also.
I did that
Yeah, and
again. Yeah.
you're also again you're also choppy, so your Wi-Fi might be a little off.
Well, I'm okay. Hold on. Screens. Screen
Yeah,
one.
make sure you.
Go
Yeah,
live. Okay. Sorry about that.
and yeah, and you're probably not recording, but that's okay since
I
it's gonna be
I
just a
I am recording for your information.
okay.
Um,
E-
okay, so this was the problem that we saw last week, and then this is the terrain issue. Um, so the lighting issue that was solved. I talked about that last week. The terrain issue that is now solved. I posted a screenshot up here of it. Let's see. Yeah, and this just shows a bunch of different random materials applied to a terrain. Not my most beautiful shot, but it's an important one because it shows that the problem is solved with AMD hardware. This was not a driver bug. I want to point out this is actually just uh, my abuse of GLSL, and sometimes AMD is a little bit more strict with its requirements, but this is within the specification, like how the API is supposed to work. So that was my error. Um, at the same time, I also added in, while I was at it, I added in, because I'm refactoring some of the graphics, I added in MSAA, multi-sample anti-aliasing, and that looks fantastic. Um, I also had to revise some of the post processing effects just because they have to sample a multi sample texture instead of a 2D texture, which is slightly different. You just use some different commands. They use multi sample textures, they use integer coordinates, and they don't have any linear sampling or edge clamping. So you have to treat them just a little bit differently, but it's not a big deal. You can basically just like write a wrapper function that treats them like a 2D texture. So the MSAA images, those go all the way through the post-processing chain. This was not the case in LEDWorks. In LEDWorks, the MSAA, like the G buffer, was rendered because it was a deferred renderer, and then at that point, everything was resolved into a 2D image, and then the post processing effects were run on top of that. With Ultra in the upcoming update, the separate pixels are kept all the way through the post processing chain, which is more computationally expensive. But the benefit of that is you don't get weird artifacts on any post processing effects that involve edges or that involve the depth buffer, basically. So you can see down here the dragon's foot, and underneath his belly here, the edge there is perfectly clean, even though we have this SSAO effect there. It gives you very, very nice edges. If you were doing this in Leadworks, you would get like little pixels along these edges that don't look quite right, like they would be too bright or too dark. There would be like a very pixelated effect there. But when we retain those separate samples all the way through the post-processing chain, then we get a very, very nice image. And it was also just an opportunity to revise some of the post-processing effects. The bloom looks a little bit better. I found it actually works better if you use a mix, like a linear interpolation between the original image and the blurred image, rather than adding the bloom image on top of it. Because if you do additive, then it's really easy for your colors to just, like, your sky just gets blasted out. You maintain the color a lot better if you interpolate between those. The volumetric light scattering, or God rays, as they're commonly called. And this is actually using, this goes through the lighting and it checks for directional lights. We could actually update this in the future to make it work on all lights. It would probably require a little bit of work with the depth buffer to make sure it's not like coming through walls and stuff. But I think that would be a very interesting thing to do in the future. SSR, of course, is looking great. All of this with MSAA on top of it. So that's what I will have for you in about a week, assuming testing goes smoothly. AMD compatibility problems will be fixed. Again, it wasn't really a driver bug. It was just the graphics works a little bit differently on AMD cards, but it's still fine. And then plus MSAA, which I know people have been wanted for a while, and then plus some revised, better post-processing effects. So Friday, if all goes well, and if it requires more testing, then I will delay it to do more testing because number one, I just want it to be a very smooth update for you guys. Any questions about that?
Is there going to be any shader revamps in this next update, or are you just going to take it one update at a time?
What do you mean?
Like the shader effects we talked about.
Oh, that's a good question. I've kind of figured out how I want to do it. Basically,
Right.
I'm going to use a separate storage buffer. Okay, so the entity matrix storage buffer is where all the entity data lives, and that uses floating points on the floating point build. But of course, it's no secret that in the future we're going to support 64-bit floats. I was a little bit like, I was trying to pack as much information as possible into a 4x4 matrix for each entity because I was trying to keep that storage space as small as possible. What I finally figured out is what I can do is if the entity has any properties that deviate from the norm, which would be like the color is white, no animation scrolling, no texture offsets or anything, which is like 90%, 98% of all entities, then it'll just have a flag saying everything's normal, just you don't have to look for any additional information. If it has any deviations from that, which is a very rare case, like probably less than 2% of your entities will actually use that feature, then it'll have a flag that says, okay, we're using some extra information, and here's the offset in this other storage buffer that you can look up. And that other storage buffer in both the 32-bit and the 64-bit build, it'll be using 32-bit. It'll just be a storage buffer of 32-bit floating point 4x4 matrices, and so that'll prevent the space from going crazy.
Yeah, it cut out a while ago for me.
Sorry, what was I talking about?
We just missed like the entire second of that.
It says my Wi-Fi connection is good. Let me check.
No, I see the little exclamation point in the corner.
Where? Which
Right
corner?
there. And top right.
Top right. This?
Yeah, there's a little like exclamation point.
I don't
All of
see
our
it.
ends.
Yeah.
It just says the stream you're viewing currently has reduced video or audio quality.
Yeah. But you're recording, so we can just watch it later.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry about that. So basically, the answer to your question is maybe. It's a definite maybe.
Yeah, I just thought this would be a great opportunity to put that in since you're in this rendering and everything.
Yeah.
Would that also be like in real time? Let's say you have an object that's white, like has a white emission, and then when it gets hit by something, let's say, it turns color, and then the engine can just say, "Oh, now you have to look up this extra information now because this event happened." Or
Oh yeah, that'll just be handled automatically. You don't have to worry about it at
Okay.
all. This is just like very obscure details of the inner workings.
Mhm.
So the reason I was concerned about it is basically because we use a 16-bit unsigned integer for the entity index, and so we have a limited number of entities that we can display. We can go up to like 65,000 separate objects. I mean, if we really wanted to, I could increase that in the future, but I don't think we need to, because if you get into like particles or the vegetation system, then that uses kind of a different rendering technique, and it's not going to be bound. Those can handle like tens of millions of objects. But for the default like rendering pipeline for entities, then we do have that limitation. So I do want to keep that in mind. So that's just like a small, like little clever way around that issue.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I just, that's something I've been asking for about,
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but this is all looking great. It's it fixes a lot of issues. It looks better. But we just got like, I'm interested to compare a scene from now to like the next build, where it's like we can like see subtle differences. If not, like, hopefully it'll just be very minor.
I don't think you'll even be able to see any difference because it's using the exact same shaders unless you turn on like MSAA or something like that, or unless you're using an AMD card.
On your end, did you adjust the roughness map on the cube maps like we discussed? Like, remember I brought up that like to get a very matte material.
Environment probes are
it still looks like glossy, even though like the roughness was like at 1, and then we went into the shaders, and then I posted it on the forum.
Yeah, I know. The environment, like, okay, so the remaining things, that's one of my remaining things to do. So it'll probably actually be done like probably tomorrow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No.
So I also do think this graphics refactor is going to give you I haven't done a lot of performance testing yet, but from what I've seen so far, I think it's a little bit faster than the previous build, and also I'm paying a lot of attention to deletion of objects. So I do think that this is going to help us with some of those random, very difficult to reproduce crashes that we were experiencing, like some people were experiencing on some hardware. So I think you'll be very happy with the update.
Speaking of crashing, did you get a chance to look at my bug I sent you, where it had to do with the construct from weak? Like, you can look at it later. I sent you a video demonstrating it.
I saw the bug report and I read over it, but I haven't tried to reproduce it yet.
Yeah, all right, because I fixed it on my end, but it was like, it sounds something with like the listen event or something. I recorded a video for it, but I just told it not to. I showed you the fix, so I did, but it's really hacked together. So
Okay, that's actually fine. Like as long as there's a thread in the bug reports forum with all the information, then I need to reproduce
well,
the problem.
I PM'd it to you because I gave you source code and
Oh, okay.
everything.
That's okay too. Yeah, I remember.
Mhm. Yeah.
As long as I have all that information that I need, then it will get looked at. It's just like bug reports are something that I do when I don't have anything else to do. This week I've had a lot to do.
All right, no problem.
Also, it looks like Klepto is making some amazing progress here.
Maybe you should start thinking about when Ultra Engine's going to get its own water system.
Yeah. I like this is probably I think this is the best screenshot I've seen from him.
The seaweed on the bottom too. That looks so good.
Yeah, I think it's just the texture, but it still looks really nice.
Well, if you have like a vegetation system under it, and you can get like
Yeah,
the seaweed to sway and stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, so after this update comes out, then actually the vegetation system. I mean, I'm just saying this for the benefit of anybody watching the video who might not know. The vegetation system is next on the list, so that'll get knocked out pretty quickly after that.
Well, you said that the vegetation system is pretty much just going to be like, for now, just a direct port of Leadworks. Is there any other features that you think can just be copied and pasted from Leadworks for now, and then revisited later? Or
I don't know of what other features are there that Leadworks has.
well, I was thinking like maybe you can also just copy and paste the decal system for now, and improve on that later, or unless you have different ideas on that going forward.
No, because Leadworks is a deferred renderer and Ultra is a forward renderer. The decal system that's going to work. It's going to be part of the lighting system.
Okay.
And so it's actually like once I start that, it's not. I think it'll only take me like 3 days to implement that. I'm just focusing on the vegetation system first because we had a poll a while back.
And a lot of people want that. No.
Yeah, and it was like not even close. Like the two big issues were AMD compatibility and vegetation, and that was like those were like way higher than anything else.
I'm interested to see like how the billboard system is going to work because you made this billboard system for Leadworks, so I'm interested to see like if we actually need that now.
What do you mean billboard?
Because, with the vegetation system, Leadworks, like it like got grainy and started to fade out the trees and everything. And you can like adjust that, but do we even need that now because the engine's so fast?
Yeah, because when you're getting into actually like if you look at some of the numbers Spider Pig has been showing, he's putting a lot of trees in and it handles the number of instances fine, but once you get into like the millions of different trees, then you run into issues. Then your vertex pipeline actually does start to become a problem. That actually does become a bottleneck, which is that's a very rare case. Usually you only see that happen if you're looking at like a 10 million polygon CAD model. But those trees, if you have like millions of trees in the distance, that'll definitely slow down the vertex pipeline. So like a billboarding system, like you're saying, I think is absolutely necessary. I'm kind of thinking it should only be from the sides though. I'm thinking having the side view, even if you're looking like almost straight down at like 80 degrees, I think that still looks better than having the, like in Leadworks, you had the top down view that it switched to. You know what I mean?
A little bit. I haven't played much with the vegetation system, but when I was playing with it, I noticed like a lot of like things with it. Yeah.
Well, it does a top-down view of like trees and rocks and stuff, and I think it like the transition for that is not very good. I'm
Yeah, I
actually
noticed
thinking
that.
it's probably better just to have the side view and just keep that even when you're like right above something, it still looks better than having that switch between the top and the side views.
Right.
And then one of the challenges there is, okay, the way it works is it renders I think in Leadworks I used 4 views around a tree. You could use more. And it renders it from each angle, and it also renders the normals, the screen normals, and it turns that into a normal map so you can get correct lighting. It's difficult to transition between those different images though. You can't really do a crossfade because they're using alpha discard. So it like if you do alpha discard, then you get weird results. Like it doesn't if you when you're interpolating between 2 images, it produces strange results. If you do alpha blending, it might like of the whole thing, it might look better, but it also might cause a significant. It might very significantly increase the computational cost because all of those layers and layers of like blending over the full screen that might incur a big cost. So trying to smooth those things in the distance, that is a priority. I don't know yet how that's going to be solved.
All right. Well, I guess just do what Leadworks did for now, and
Yeah.
this way people have something to play with, and
Yeah,
yeah, 'cause
that's what I'm thinking.
I think right now the issue is that people are like, as they learn the engine, they're like, oh, I want to do this now, and they're like, oh, I can't do this because this is not implemented yet, or I don't have enough examples or information to do what I want to do next. Like I notice like a lot of people like they get to a point and they're like, oh, I need this to be done now, or I need this, or so I think just getting things implemented so people can start like making things is important. So
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I posted a video some weeks ago. It's about this guy which makes an engine, and he is using, I think for this, he is using instance rendering. Maybe this could be also an idea for the terrain.
We use instanced rendering and then like plus some. Yeah, we that's definitely something we already like. What we have is actually like if it's just like normal instanced rendering, we do something like way more advanced than that. We use multi-draw, so we're drawing like he's drawing batches. We're doing batches of batches basically.
It's just about could be an idea for the terrain, so you could actually use, for example, prefabs as trees and make stuff with them.
Do you have a link to that? I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I know I'm not thinking of the wrong thing.
All right.
You can post it in the Discord chat and I'll look at it later if you want. I just want to make sure I'm not like dismissing what you're saying.
I posted a video in the chat. I got it.
Okay.
Second. I need to open the chat. Post this video.
If he's just talking about instance rendering, then that's something we've been doing for like the last 20 years. Maybe I should just start making YouTube videos.
yeah, and get that 5 cents a month
Yeah.
in ad revenue.
I'd watch them.
I'll watch them too.
Yeah, and I'll just like have like really clickbaity titles and have myself like, you know, with a stupid haircut and like making faces on the thumbnail. And
he has really did he have a big brain? Actually, he was working on Frostbite. So
yeah, I'm not like dissing this guy. I'm just saying like I don't think. Oh, I'll take a look. But if he's just talking about instanced rendering, then that's. I mean, we've been doing that for like 20 years.
You want to say something?
No, I was just going to ask, in terms of like procedural generation, where's all in those regards? Because I haven't really looked through a lot of the documentation yet.
We have we have an extension that does allows you to do AI based image generation, and it's just hooking into Dolly. Let's see. I'll do it right now.
Something's broken.
Billing hard limit has been reached. Really? I haven't even been using it. Okay, I guess I have a cap on how much I can spend each month, but that's kind of strange.
Well, so when you showed the trees and stuff earlier, there was something I was working on before on a different engine, but I was using Perlin noise and foliage. It was actually pretty interesting little mechanic. I was just wondering if your engine would support that if I were to try to implement it at all in the future.
For like terrain generation?
Foliage, like trees, tree rings, bark, all that stuff.
That would actually be useful because you can actually say like, oh, I want this part of the map to be like very dense forest, and then this part just be like meadows and everything. So instead of like someone going in and painting it.
Right? You know, in Leadworks, the way we did that is we had like a minimum and maximum slope that the vegetation could be applied to, and then we could just you would just like make a really big brush radius, drag it over the whole scene, and that way you would have like trees everywhere except cliff sides. Basically, that's about as advanced as it got. What kind of ideas do you have? Like,
well, mostly when you were discussing how the trees looked and everything, I have some work files of mine that I own, and I was thinking if I get into any sort of engine development or anything in the future, taking some of that work and putting it into a new engine. And it's basically just a noise generating algorithm where you take you know how Perlin noise works, and then I have the everything's defined already. I would just have to probably convert it to whatever your engine uses, but it would just generate trees, just random trees that are all completely unique to each other. And they also have interiors where it can generate tree rings and it can generate dynamic mesh and other stuff. It's pretty heavy stuff, but I was just more curious if the engine would support something like that, or if it would take a lot of work for me to implement it.
So is it more like a 3D model generator?
Yeah, it's a mesh generator.
What formats can it output?
I would actually have to check that, because right now it's set up for a proprietary format from the other engine I was working on. So
okay,
I'll probably have to change that. I could probably make it do whatever I want, OBJ or anything else.
Well, you might. I mean, you might be able to just. It might be easiest just to. Hold on. It might be easiest just to construct a 3D model in code, because we have this API so that you can do exactly like that. You can this allows you to build meshes from your code, so that might be the way to go.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm mostly focused on performance.
I could tell you this is not a very performative shader setup that I have. I would have to optimize it severely to actually get. If you're not running something with a lot of VRAM, it's gonna hit heavy.
In the generation step, or like in the
generation step, yeah. And then once that's done, though, it's dumped from the buffer, and you've got it lags a bit. A friend of mine and I were working on it a while back. It's not just for trees, though. It can also generate rocks. It can generate cliff sides, whatever you need. something I was working on as well with Unreal Engine 5. So the
I'd
conversion
be,
between the nanite system is something that I'm having issues with. But
I would be interested in seeing like more of it, so I have a better idea. Um,
okay, I'll talk
yeah,
to that friend of
it
mine,
sounds
see what we can
interesting.
do.
Mm, yeah. Mm. All right, I do have a question, but this is like not relating to graphics or anything.
Hmm.
With the announcement of Steam Audio being now Apache and open source, um, when and my criticisms in the past of the sound implementation, do you think a do you think it'll be better to go to Steam Audio since it supports geometry occlusion and better H um HRTF filtering and all that?
So Steam Audio, I've actually looked into this in the past, and
Mhm.
uh, it's not actually a sound system. You still use an underlying sound system to actually do the like it outputs a like sound like raw audio, I think, and then
Mhm.
you have an underlying system like OpenAI or OpenAL or FMod or something that you put that through. I think the right I think the right thing to do is like just make the OpenAL audio system, just perfect it,
Mhm.
because I
Let's
mean
open
it's
it. No, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
mean what are the I mean there was something about yeah, the way that I did audio filters was probably bad, and that needs to be revised.
Yeah, but I also want to experiment with geometry occlusion where and I think this should be in the base engine where if you place a brush and a sound um happens like behind that brush, the sound goes around the brush and it gets blocked by the brush. Right now just sound goes through geometry like
Right,
nothing
right,
is
right,
there.
right.
And
Um,
I don't know if OpenAL supports that or has that
Oh, it
implemented.
does. No, you can do that with OpenAL. I've done that before. You can use so I don't know if how Ultra Engine does it, but you can use sound probes and also use 3D audio with that as well. I know
Right,
with the
right,
new Steam audio stuff that fully supports it. So
right.
well, the Steam
Yeah,
Audio,
because
it's I think it's basically like modeling sound waves, basically. So like it gives you a pretty realistic like sound of like sound bouncing around corners and stuff.
yeah, and if you define the vertices for the for like the brush or whatever it's intersecting, you can have the sound fall off or whatever else. I used it before on a couple projects. It's pretty good.
yeah. No, I was just wondering because I was looking at the Fmod and Fmod's like, oh, add polygon, and then you just like copy the vertices of a mesh to the sound engine, and then you'll have like the object in sound space. So and I thought that would be a really neat feature, not only for games but also for simulations because it's more accurately doing sounds. So I think
And
that
for VR with like the two different ears on your head
Yeah.
moving.
correct. So I think that should be once you have time to revisit the sound system. I think that'll be now it'll benefit both customers of yours, not only the game side but the simulation side too.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. My concern is I don't know, like maybe you guys who if you've used this before, maybe you know a little bit better. But like my concern is how that's going to scale because like in the future we want to support very large worlds that and this stuff has to be like I think Steam Audio. I think your geometry has to be like voxelized and fed into it, right?
You can use a one of the other things you can actually do there is you can I think what you can define just a basic mesh for what the audio is interacting with instead of the like a really heavy model or something that it's dealing with. You just build a basic box around it and say that's what you're interacting with, and it works decently well enough. It's hardware agnostic enough though, but there are better systems out there. My go-to these days is RTX audio, but of course that's NVIDIA only. So
Yeah, I think the big question there for me is like I think that's going to involve geometry, like sort of streaming in and out of that system because I mean if we're doing stuff the size of the entire planet, things get a little bit trickier.
You can define a bounding box where the audio just completely falls off, and if you do that within like a
Yeah.
specific range, you're not going to have much issue.
That's probably the way to go. So okay? So what are the options here? There's Steam Audio, and that runs on everything, and that's completely CPU. Run on the CPU. Then NVIDIA RTX Audio. I haven't.
RTX audio is, I think if you're going to use it in a commercial product, I think you have to pay for a license for RTX audio, and it only runs on NVIDIA, and it only runs on 30 and 40 series cards. The optical processor for the 20 series can't run it properly.
So yeah, that's probably a no-go. But I'm curious, like, what was your experience with it?
Oh, it's fantastic.
What does it do?
It basically uses so it uses the on the card itself. It uses the RT cores, and then it uses the denoiser through the tensor core, and it does a projection of audio into the scene. And then the graphics card itself does the rendering of the vertices and tells the audio waves exactly how they're supposed to be positioned within the environment. It's pretty much just loading APIs in, and it's fantastic. But again, it's pretty heavy on the GPU. You will lose, even on like my 4090, I've lost 30 FPS when I run full scene audio.
Huh.
But it's neat. It's
nuts.
A gimmick, but it is a unique system that is much more accurate than anything else you're going to get on the market.
Brought to you by NVIDIA.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shill for NVIDIA, but they're good at what they do. I don't know, if you have an RTX card, I would say
What's that?
I would say it's worth looking into if you can.
Oh, I was just saying, seeing as how they hit 2 trillion the other day, I don't need anyone to shill for them.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Extra big ass fries.
Oh, but that's interesting. I just wanted to know where the sound system lies because it is lacking, and I keep looking at FMod, but I don't want to use it because it has its own challenges. Let's just say that.
Well, I'd say like phase one is to perfect what we have with open
AL.
Thank you. Too many OpenGL,
Yeah.
OpenAL, OpenAI, Open blah blah. Use that
With
for make that our
Open-
baseline, and then look at other options. And from what I've seen, like Steam Audio is probably the best option for general use.
Yeah, I just right now I just need the filters fixed, and I'll be happy for now. I think the geometry thing is just a bonus at this point.
Yeah.
With how you have the audio right now, so are you using like audio probes in the environment, or is it just like directional audio where you just set up something that's an emitter, or what?
It's just 3D spatialization with no occlusion, and it has head related HRTF, head related
HRTF.
transfer function,
Yeah,
and it has that, which is kind of nice for headphones, but it's pretty simple.
And it can
I was
support,
gonna
like,
say that's almost 25-year-old tech right there.
Yeah,
Some old school stuff, man.
it's kind of lacking. This is why I kind of want it to be.
I don't know, definitely. And I would say the Steam Audio would be the one you'd want to go with because it would definitely solve a lot of the issues. And you won't get audio through a wall that sounds like it's right next to you.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think for a game engine, like audio is a distant. I don't know if it's second or third or fourth, but graphics obviously is way more of a focus for us.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'd say put the make sure
Fix the filter, make that like a global, and you could just say, oh, I'm in a cavern, or I'm outside, or this reverb or these settings, because right now it's per listener, per speaker, and it's very limiting.
Set filter. This is. I think it's done this way because this is the way that the underlying system works. But it shouldn't be too. This is what he's referring to. Speaker set filter. It shouldn't be too hard to change this up so that it just automatically applies it to, so it's just like a global setting, and it automatically applies it to all of the sound emitters.
Speakers and
Yeah.
the listener can hear. It's also the other like interesting aspect, like how like let's say like a portal, let's say like from Portal, let's say, and you can hear things through the portal. Like how would I do that in Ultra Engine? Because I need a microphone on each side of the portal, and then I need to also to re. So I would need to have each portal be a listener, and then I need sound to go through the portal. So how would I do that? I'm not gonna do it. That's just a hypothetical. Like how would I do that?
Any ideas?
No. I'm speaker. How could I set a speaker to re-emit from the listener? I guess.
I think that's something to ponder, for me to ponder this week. Andy, I pasted a link to the multi-draw elements command that I was talking about. There's a, let's see, that's the OpenGL version. There's a VK multi-draw, something like that.
Oh, this is what I was actually about to mention. I was going to say you set up a array setup. Yeah. Nice. This is in Vulkan, right? Yeah.
I can't find the Vulkan command, but that's the OpenGL command is the same. This is just a response to what you were talking about, like instanced rendering. In Ultra, we're doing that. Actually, like Ledworks used the instanced rendering commands. In Ultra, we're using multi-draw, which is like you're drawing batches of different meshes all in one draw call. So it's like all of everything that uses one shader all gets drawn in a single draw call. But back to the audio topic. Was there anything else about that?
No, I think the real issue is that we need like a method saying like in the speakers set listener or something where if an entity hears something, the speaker will just mimic the sound somewhere else in 3D space. So think of it like you have a level of an arena, and like you have a microphone, but the speakers are in like the stadium area, but the microphone is like in like a booth. I want to be able to like go in that booth and like do something and have that sound be re-emitted from in the arena, pretty much. And right now, I don't think there's like a way to directly do it without going to the underlying OpenAL stuff.
I mean,
you'd have to have like two speakers for every object that was trying to emit, like one for both locations.
I mean, that's what the engine would be doing under the hood, anyways, right?
I guess. I mean, the Portal one's more of a real life example because you can actually go in and play Portal and like you can hear sounds through the portals. So
it'd be interesting to figure out how Valve did that, or if that's just basically a feature of their sound engine.
No, what they do is that they create a microphone on each side of the portal, and then they created an emitter on the other side of the portal. And in Source, you can just do that. A lot of the Half-Life 2 scenes were just that. They have like an actor, like the Dr. Breen screen. He's in a separate part of the map. He's talking. He has a microphone entity right in front of his face, but it's being rebroadcast in playable space with filters and but he's actually talking like on the other side of the map, but his sound's being re-emitted in like the train station. And
it was the whole day that was RT camera system along with the audio reprojection they did. It's not
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
that complex. You're just basically doing an array system where you have it cast from here, and then the other one is just doing the same audio. And I don't know how you would do that in Ultra Engine. I haven't looked through enough of the documentation, but it doesn't sound like it'd be that complex.
Right. The thing is that it's not like easily directable. It's not like in the API itself. It's not like easily like you can't just be like, oh well, this is how I would do it. You have to actually like think about it.
Yeah, I
Look
think
into
all of those. I think all of those systems under the hood. I'm sure they're just like doubling up the sound emitters and or like transforming them to a different space and using that to. Yeah, that's what they're actually doing. They're just taking their position relative to that microphone in that area and then transforming that to the player's location and then and that's where they really are. I'm sure that's what they're doing.
or like a point in 3D space, like an
Yeah.
actual like TV or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's hard. I'm just saying like there's no like clear way looking at the documentation on how to do that.
I think like more practical examples would help me to like understand how that such a feature would be used.
I get well
I think
again.
sound in the game Portal is a very very niche thing.
It's not a very naturally occurring phenomenon.
Right, but
I would say it would be we could get Jeep to come in here. I'm sure he'd love to talk about that. Reap. He's got plenty of information on how he had to rewrite a lot of the systems in Source Engine.
yeah, but I'm saying like that's a good example. That's like a clear example, but I think we should be worried about like TVs, like the TVs in Half-Life 2 or the microphone setup is kind of like not used.
Does Ultra Engine have like an emitter entity you can attach to an object that just puts the sound out?
Yeah, you can
Well,
any entity. There's a method that says emit sound, and it'll just create like basically under the hood. It creates a speaker, and that follows the entity around wherever it goes. So it can be like a one shot.
You could jury rig something then with that. You could just set up two entities and just
but it's not. It won't be a live sound though. Like I wanted a live sound. Like if I shoot, like if something happens across the map, I want to be able to hear it on the other side of the map. Pretty much.
Couldn't you attach the entity then to the object that you're operating, and then just create a relay between the two, where when you do something here, it happens over there?
Yeah, but I thought it'd be something more easy if I just say, hey, put a microphone here, put a sound emitter here, have the sound emitter be attached to the microphone, and wherever sound happens over there, relays over here, pretty much.
Yeah, I think he's just saying he wants like something like that as a feature that's just where all the details are taken care of under the hood.
Why I don't have to like actually like write a component to do that for me.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to clarify. I was trying to understand what you were getting at.
No, it's all good. But most importantly is the filter stuff that if that could be fixed, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's actually like it's not super hard to do. So, what are you guys all working on?
I'm working on my game system. Like I have a working console and I have to do the scene management system, but I have it so set up so it boots up and you get an in-game console and then you can like set commands, you can register con bars, con commands, and you can actually it's like Quake pretty much, so you can actually like have your settings be con bars, and then you can actually have it execute those con bars or con commands from the command line. And it supports saving and all that, and cheats and all that. So you can register a con command as a cheat, and then it tells the game that cheats have been enabled, so you can tell Steamworks not to reward achievements.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
So you have God mode.
No, because I didn't write the player code yet.
Will
That's
that be
player
will
side.
that be a cheat code?
Yeah. God, no clip, um, infinite ammo, and normalized. So, like, my input system doesn't talk to my core system. Um, and one of the reasons why I was asking about sound is because I was thinking about, a sound implementation. Um, Instead of loading WAV files, you load profiles, and pretty much like you just say like, and the profile contains the pitch, the volume, the range, and all that, and the files, and you can support random waves like footstep sounds. You don't want the same footstep sound, so I have a read from a JSON file, and then I just put that in an array, and then I just say, okay, play a random sound, and then it just picks a random sound, and it just plays a random sound. So
So it's like a sound
just
material. Like if sounds are the
should use
textures,
that.
then your profile file is a material, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of similar how like Source does it, where instead of loading WAV files, you're loading like the sound material, and it's actually um more useful because you can reuse the same sound file but a material, and and you don't have to like go back into like Audacity or something. And if you forget like what sound is what, you can just load up the JSON file and just like look at it. One of the things about using Fmod Studio was that all the sounds were in a black box, and without the Fmod Studio software, you don't know what is what. So that's why I want to get away from Fmod Studio, because it's
What do you mean they were in a black box?
so Fmod Studio, all your sounds are in a bank or in banks, and when you load up Fmod Studio, it's kind of like you get like a interface, so you can actually, so it's kind of like GarageBand or something. You can actually go in, you can mix sounds, you can change like the reverb and stereo position and all that. You can change like, that's how you set like the sound channels, like, all right, this is game sounds, this is music, this is voice, and all that's stored in the bank. But unless you have that software installed, you cannot, and the project file, you don't know you've at like what you named your sound or something. So like, so if you don't have the source file, the project file, you don't know. Like, I don't remember what I called my sounds or whatever, because I haven't looked at that in 8 months. So, but if everything is just a WAV file or an MP3, and I have a JSON file, I can be like, oh, well, I wonder what this sound was. And I could just look at the JSON file and just say, oh, okay, it was cyclone open or cyclone close. My only concern is how I would integrate that with the editor, because don't want to, because I just want to, because I want like a list of all the sounds from the JSON file or JSON files in the editor, and then I just want to like pick it. But I don't know how to, but because of the limited documentation and not enough examples for me to like figure it out, I don't know like how I would do that. So
yeah, that's understandable. So the editor has an extension system built with that uses Lua. In fact, that's this feature right here is entirely written in Lua, but the it's just sort of evolving. I don't have it documented yet, and we're just sort of like making it up as we go, basically. Which in this case, I think is actually the right way to go, because it's hard to design a system not knowing like how it's going to actually be used. So that'll come in time, but that's that just gives a little bit more of an explanation to what he's seen. I need to figure out what's going on with my OpenAI account, because I have it set at like, I think I have the limit set at like $20, but I never go, as far as I know, I never go anywhere near that much. So I don't know who's been using my account.
well, speaking of limits, I can't log into my Ultra Engine licensing.
I saw that this morning. We'll discuss that after the thing.
Yeah. But that's how I want to integrate my sound system, is just have sound materials, and I want I actually do want like physics materials too. In the like, I know this is more of a me problem than a you problem, but I also want physics materials. So if you shoot wood, it'll act like wood, or it'll sound like wood. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the reasons the player collision in Ultra is better than Leadworks, especially with on constructive solid geometry, is because I opted in Leadworks. All your CSG brushes get merged into a few like big meshes. It's divided up by like what area in the octree it is, but it gets divided up into meshes, and at that point you just have triangle geometry. Okay.
Right.
The physics, the collider for that mesh is created from the geometry. So it's using a, I think it's called a Newton polygon something. It's so the collision geometry is polygons. In Ultra, I decided I kept I kept all the convex holes that are used that are used by the brushes, and when you do that, it turns out collision against a convex hole is a lot better. You get a lot better results than you do if you're going against polygonal geometry.
Yeah, I noticed that because I tried to jam my radio in the corner of the wall and it didn't go through this time. So
yeah. Because it has volume. So if it goes through, if some reason, I don't know exactly, the details of it, but the major difference there is convex holes have volume and polygon mesh collisions do not have any volume. So you get better quality that way. One small issue though is that with convex holes, there's no way really of accurately knowing which face was hit. So that means with polygon mesh geometry, if one surface is hit, I know basically like which face on the brush was hit, so I know which material was hit. With a convex hole, I don't know if the original object had multiple materials applied to it. I don't know which material it actually used.
I see, because I'll be using a trace, and that's on the physics side, and because I can't get the face and the material off that face.
Right, because there aren't any faces because it's just a solid block. I mean, there might be. I mean, it might be possible to like track it and figure out like which is the closest. Yeah, I'm actually like pretty sure. Like you could get. It would be extremely accurate, I think, actually, if you figured out just which face on that object is the closest to where the collision point occurred. And then from that, you could figure out which face, and then you could figure out the material. So I think that will work actually really well. But it's just sort of like an extra step that hasn't happened yet. So that's the only caveat I want to like make you aware of.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'm not there yet. These are just ideas because with models it'll be easier because you could just say, oh, this metal is made of metal or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how Source does it anyway. I mean, it'll be cool to be like, oh, well, this part of the model is wood, so if you shoot this one, it's gonna like splinter. But if you shoot this part, it's gonna like, because it's metal, it's gonna like cause a spark and make a metal impact sound. But I think that's a little bit too much. I mean, for VR, it's probably critical, but for like a game, it's probably like a flat panel game. It's probably not a big deal.
I think it's mostly a matter of like convenience, because you don't, one thing you don't want is for using such a system to be tedious. So how would you suggest doing that? Like, would it be defined maybe in the material, or?
one of the reasons I asked you to add the fixed custom properties in the material was because of the physics material system. So the idea was that a raycast goes out, it hits the surface, it says, okay, this is a okay material, like I need to look in your custom properties. What surface property are you? Okay, you're concrete. So I'm gonna go to my, like, let's say surface, like the surface property, like bank or whatever, and I'm gonna say, okay, I need to make I hit it at this speed on I hit it at this speed. I need this sound material, and I need this particle to create, and this decal material to create the impact decal. I need to create the dust particle, and I need to make the impact sound. So it's something like I would do. I don't think it'll be like something you would like find in the engine. I think that's something like the game programmer would have to do.
I think it could be, but so it sounds like there would be like some predefined, basically physics materials, like things that something is made out of, something substances that an object.
Do you have a PBR system implemented with Ultra Engine?
Yeah, the materials are all PBR.
You can actually use that then to define the material properties for any aspect of the engine you want. You can make components for audio, you can make components for material deposition, you can cause deformations in the vertex. Whatever you want to do is possible if you have a PBR system already.
Why would PBR like how would
so
that?
What you'd have to do is you have to define it in code. So in Unreal Engine, one of the things I was working on, they actually have it implemented with the nanite system. With PBR, you basically just say, okay, this module here is saying this material's metal, and then it just tells every other aspect of the engine. And of course, I'm not saying you can compete with Unreal, but you basically tell the engine, this is metal, this is how metal behaves. And then the engine itself will attach sparks, it'll attach everything else you need to that material, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
like
I mean, that's
a better.
yeah, I think
better
that's
version of Source.
That's basically what we're saying. We don't have to. I don't really see us as competing directly with Unreal because game engines like Leadworks and Unity and Ultra, they're all designed from like. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, they're designed for ease of use, and then we make the graphics and everything as good as possible. And I think other engines that were originated quite a long time before we started, they're more focused on making their game, and then they start with that, and then they end with like the end user experience. And so we're both sort of like, I always saw us as like coming at it, both of us approaching things from the opposite starting point.
Yeah, I understand. I got it. I work mostly these days with Unreal, and a lot of this sounds like problems that have been solved, and there's a huge wiki on a lot of this.
But regarding material properties, I think the basic idea we're saying is that like we don't want to have to define the sound and the particle to use and stuff in every single material. So you just want to have like a few.
Well, you would just create a surface property, and
yeah,
then you just
yeah. So, do you think that should be like a? There should be like a.
That was what I was gonna mention. Is you make the service property, you have it where the audio either intersects, and I don't know. Does Ultra Engine support like? Now, maybe this would have to be something someone would have to do on their own. Does it support like a face reverb or like properties for the sound when it intersects like a mesh, or not yet?
We have audio filters, but yeah, that's all. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, I'm just asking because I don't like if you wanted to. Hunter Brute and I talk about is like how static games have become because you
You're cutting out there, dude.
files and they break. I'm sorry. Um, yeah. So one thing Hunterbrute and I talked about was how static game environments became, and if there's a system to make more things dynamic, even if it's like source one quality of interaction, that's still better than most modern. So,
I mean, you go to a table today and there's like sorry, that's my wife in the background with a dog. There's this thing I noticed where when you play Half-Life or something, you could pick up a box, you could pick up the cans, you could pick up all the stuff, move it around and pick up that can. And then what I noticed after about Unreal 4, everything became highly static and the environments were locked down. You walk up to a table and 99% of all games you can't do anything. You shoot it and it just makes like a little indent texture. One of the things that the reason why I got involved with certain projects and stuff was because I wanted to have like a dynamic environment with an engine. So it's something Reap and I have been talking about, and I know he's trying to maintain that aspect with his projects and whatever.
yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I know the whole thing is supposed to be interactability, you know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like we have the technology where you can like shoot a paint can. The paint can will have the lid pop off. The can will just spin and paint will just go everywhere. But no one does that. We have the technology to do it, but no one does that. And 10 years or 15 years ago, we would have killed to see something like that, but we don't do it. So
I mean, I really want to. I have to go through some of my projects because some stuff is owned by other companies and all that. But so I'm not sure fully how Ultra Engine does it, but I know in Unreal. I don't know if you guys all remember, there was a program called DMM, Digital Molecular Matter, back in about 2008, 2009. It was in the Force Unleashed or whatever, though that Star Wars game, Lucasfilm bought them out. That software, there's an aspect of it that was open source for a short while. Now you're not allowed to use that code. But in Unreal Engine 5,
open source? And now it's not.
There was a GitHub that you could actually get back in the day. I may or may not still have some of that code. Now, am I allowed to use it? No.
But well, I mean, they can't just release something with one license and then change it.
Well, again, you're fighting against Disney at that point. But
sorry,
the way she goes, you know. Anyway, so with Unreal, one of the systems I've been working on that I still have access to is nanite deformation. I don't know if you guys are familiar. So nanite is built upon the 2011 code set for tessellation, which was AMD's ATI's move into adding more detail where detail doesn't exist, where they just double the triangle count, basically. But nanite, basically, you can do a photo scan of an object, and then once you have the object loaded into Unreal, you can define the material properties, and you can create false. Well, the way that I would put it is it's false vertices. So you break the model, and then the model separates. My wife's moving the dog around right now, knocking stuff over. The break, but you didn't paint the other face because you have the definition of that model. You'll get a fake face on the other end when the model falls apart. Now, that's a feature that I don't think we're going to see for a very, 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 very long time because it's extremely expensive. You get about a 50 to 100 millisecond when it has to render that. I have a lot of Unreal projects that I've been talking with Reef about. I kind of want to migrate them to another engine because I really don't like working with Epic Games. And my perspective is, from what I've seen for Ultra Engine, it looks like so your engine, Josh, it looks like you have a module-based engine, right? You can just load components and everything into it.
There's an entity component system, yeah.
because that's something I might be looking into here in the future. Because I'm out of the industry at this point. A lot of things, as you know, have happened, and I'm trying to follow all of this. And I'm sitting here thinking, I have all these project files. Now, does Ultra Engine, little off topic, does it support RTX features, ray tracing, all that?
Not at this time. I am very interested in that in the future.
I would advise. Actually, you know what? I might send you some stuff because my advice to you, you need two things that I would say you want to implement. Just a general denoiser. You can actually AMD has a developer program. Don't go with the NVIDIA one because they're going to lock you into RTX. If you go with the general denoiser algorithm, and then now they're going to use temporal upscaling, which is garbage, but it's better than nothing. Um,
Are you talking about their
is
FSR code?
yeah,
Yeah, I was actually looking at it last week.
it's pretty good stuff. I mean, for what you can do with it, I've been messing around with it. Your engine, from what I've seen, does impress me. I'm enjoying listening to all this and all that, but I want to move all my projects over to a new engine, and there's a big thing you got in front of you, dude. I think you could if you implement. So, does Ultra Engine have FSR implemented yet?
Nope. We do.
You
We
haven't
have
done FSR?
the closest I've done is I've actually our screen space reflection. It uses reprojection. That was kind of interesting to work that out. But it works really
Is
well.
that when you say reprojection, or are you doing just QMAP reprojection, or what?
No, it's taking what it does is it takes the last image that was rendered, and then it just and it saves the previous camera projection matrix, and then in the next frame, it will when it's calculating this reflection here, it like transforms it to the previous the pixel position. It transforms it to the previous projection matrix, and then does the depth buffer lookup with that. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's very intuitive for me to understand. And that's actually I can see how that I can see how reprojection can be very, very powerful. I think Klepto has done that too with some of his Sky stuff, but
Did you solve the blur on your own, or do you have a solution that you've implemented for reprojection?
what do you mean?
Because you get pixel blurring where you get well, I would call it bleeding, where like each pixel next to each one next to each pixel, you get where pixel says I'm blue, the other says I'm green. Then you get a issue where you get like a turquoise color instead of the proper colors when you're doing reprojection. Unless you're not talking about like ray reprojection, you're talking about what exactly with reprojection?
These are well, it's a ray, and then let's see, how did I? Okay, so like with the screen space reflection, what it does is it shoots a ray that travels a little bit at a time, and then at each position, it transforms the ray's current position to the camera projection matrix from the last frame. And then it checks the depth buffer at that point, and it checks to see if it hit anything. And then if it does hit anything, then it does a little bit, it kind of backs up, and then it goes in smaller increments to get a finer read on the exact point. And then finally, when it settles on a final position, then it does a lookup of the previous texture buffer. And I guess I think that is using linear. I don't remember if it's using linear or nearest filtering.
It would have to be when I wrote. So a guy I was working with before, we wrote a general ray tracer that did the exact same thing. But yeah, that would be like that's just intersections. Whatever. Okay. I'm curious. So when it comes to Ultra Engine at this time, one of the questions I never got to ask you, like, what's your, if you even know, what's your like end goal for the engine?
Business-wise or technology-wise, or?
Technology-wise, I don't give a shit about the business. No offense, but
Well, the business defines the technology a lot of times. But so 1.0, I mean, I think we know the features that we want in this. We want the vegetation system finished, particles, decals. Those are the only things missing. Along with, I'd like to have like a really nice demo showcasing what you can actually do with it. And then in the future, after that, in the future, I want to go in the direction of I want to make things big. We made things 10 times faster. Now I want to make things 100 million times bigger. So this works out really well for both like the enterprise side and the and for the gamer side, because gamers, they really like the idea of making really, really huge worlds. And with some of the NASA stuff that I do, of course we want to be able to do like very large simulations of like not just the entire planet, but like the entire solar system. I think we can do that with like a millimeter
you can do it
accuracy.
pretty. You've seen what I worked on before. You know you can do it. Not you don't have to have a big overhead because it's just point cloud data and a bunch of other bullshit. So
Well,
But,
yeah, you can. Yeah, I won't say anything about it, but yeah.
yeah, um, I'll tell you what I told you before, and I agree with Jensen Huang. When I told you about what was going on 6 7 months ago. The aspect for development I think you should look into, like now start looking into it, is generative algorithms for AI. And I know that's this big like thing that people think is a fad. It's not. You've seen what's coming out. I told you about Sora before it was even announced. Um, there's something coming up here. It'll probably be in May or June of this year. NVIDIA is going to be releasing a new tool suite. It will
Just
be working.
FYI, this video is being recorded, and we usually upload these to YouTube.
That's fine. I'm not gonna say any names or anything. There's
Okay.
something coming up you should look into for engine development. I would advise you get developer access through the NVIDIA suite. Omniverse and others have a bunch of tools. You'll get an idea of where you can take the engine. If you want your engine to be as successful as you've described, my advice is look into AI right now and get it going, because you can actually do so. I can't send you the files or anything, but I do have API layers now for games. There's a reason I don't post screenshots of it. I can't show those things. I could make any game look like any style I want. Now it runs at 15 FPS. Again, early days, but there's some stuff coming up where I think Ultra Engine would definitely benefit if you start to make optimized components and stuff for people to use. And with the way Ultra Engine is, from what Reap and I have talked about, I think you've got something good. I mean, you've got a beautiful engine, and there's this idea that I've run into when I've dealt with Epic Games that drove me nuts, where they'll hire 500 people to work on a single component of the engine, and it's so convoluted and so complex and so stupid, yet you could just simplify it. And I think with Ultra Engine, as long as you keep it simple, what's the old KISS format? Keep it simple, stupid. Because that's what I've seen with Ultra Engine, and what I like. It's kind of like why I like Source Engine. So I think you've got something good, dude. But look into some of the. I'm gonna send you some stuff. And then,
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, technical debt kills. That's one of the big reasons why we're literally like 10 times, sometimes 100 times faster than Unity, is technical debt on their part.
oh god, I dropped Unity ages ago because it was driving me up the wall.
Well, it's still like very popular, and so I'd say like appealing to. I'd say that's like in the future, over the next year, I think that's going to be our number one new user as people coming from Unity, especially once we add C# support. I can.
So wait. Reap and I were talking about that. I asked if you were going to add. You are adding C# support.
Well, there's no date is promised on that or anything, but it seems like an obvious thing to do.
I got a bit of a smile on my face if you're adding C#.
Why wouldn't? Yeah, I mean, that's of course.
Do it. Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
Capslow has been doing his own layers too. He's been, there's been some like experimentation with C# in the beta and everything. So it's like it's not like if, it's like when, pretty much.
Awesome. I have some. As I said, I don't have the license yet for Ultra Engine, but you've got my interest peaked.
Well, personally, I don't care about C#, but like Andy here, he's probably would love
I
C#.
do. I care about C#. I got a lot of C# projects. I hate C#, but I have a lot of stuff in it that I want to.
I like C#.
Yeah, so
than C++.
What do you like about
it's
it?
Okay. C# is a little more streamlined than C++, but I got some stuff I'm more than willing to start experimenting on in Ultra Engine. If you could give me a baby, Josh, not in the other way, but give me a baby to work with, and I'll mod it to the extreme.
While I was waiting for the prefabs and all the stuff the last 2 weeks, and I just completed my own 2D engine.
What do you like about C#?
Personally, I like the C syntax, and I like that C# is handle all the memory stuff for you, so you don't need to overcomplicate things if a pointer is still alive, or
Yeah, my impression is like C# is it's basically C++ with faster compile times. You don't have to deal with headers. And the garbage collection is, as long as it doesn't become an issue, like for performance, which like in our engine, I don't think it'll be a problem because your logic thread is completely separate from the rendering thread, so you won't have any like lag spikes. But I think the garbage collection is probably a little bit simpler than, C++ shared pointers are very good, but garbage collection is like, you never have to worry about like weak pointers or anything. So I can understand why people would like it.
Yeah. I just don't like that it's owned by Microsoft.
Backing up to your point about AI, I was in a discussion yesterday actually, and it does seem like basically I think the overall idea here is that AI could replace procedural rendering algorithms. Like I've seen, like NVIDIA has released stuff like that already.
Well, they do the releases. I sent you the link. Go there, register, and then they might ask you some questions and stuff. Just answer them, whoever you are, et cetera, what you're working on.
I think I'm already
You'll probably
registered,
get accepted.
actually. But
then you're good. So the way that I see this, when I was doing work for engine that shall not be named, one of the things one of the projects I worked on, which was working with OpenAL and OpenGL, and I think we were at about 3.2 or 3.5 or some nonsense. It might have been 4.0. I don't remember. But one of the projects I was dealing with, I was working directly with some NVIDIA engineers. So we lacked a proper lighting system. So what we used, it was basically just there was no shadows or anything. And I'm trying to think of the name of what it was called. It's just basically where you have a single point light source and then the object is lit up or not lit up. There's no shadows. I took that system and ran it through a Vulkan layer for the software, and I deferred the processing of about 10,000 screenshots of the program plus the texture database, and I was able again, I was about 15 FPS at 1920 by 1080. It would fill up the GPU and the CPU real quick, 100% utilization, but it could in paint any style I wanted. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but again, this is where things are going. Your new cell phones and everything are starting to get these chips put in them. We're at kind of an impasse in terms of technology today, and I know with engine development that you have to look at what the average user is using, but you also need to be future ready. I would say when you look into this, Josh, if you implement this stuff, just make sure you tell your user base their hardware might not support it. Because I can tell you a 4090 won't support half that stuff. But the future is AI. You're not even going to be rendering frames anymore. You're basically painting the scene of what you expect to see. And it's something I'm still doing as like a side hobby. And it blows my mind. Like, I wish I could show you more. I don't want to be sued again, but you know, it's the way she goes.
Well, there's something called NVIDIA Canvas.
Yes. I just make sure you don't show their stupid code and everything. But
I don't know. I haven't downloaded it yet. But so like this is the input. This is the output.
you can do this in real time now at about. What's your what GPU do you have?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to say. It's embarrassing. I don't have an RTX GPU. I mean, I can buy one. I just like normally I like actually like most of Ultra was like the core rendering system. It was actually developed on integrated graphics because
Reap told me.
yeah, because it made like it was actually that little. Do you know those? Okay, like the original Steam Dev days, they did 2 of them, and at the first one they gave away those little tiny gigabyte Steam machines. It's the gigabyte bricks.
You developed on a 2013 Steam machine?
Yes, that was how Ultra was. Like this was back around like 2020 when I was like 2019 when I was figuring out how the rendering algorithm should work. I developed on that because the bottlenecks were so easy to identify with that. It was a lot easier than if I had a high-end GPU. I mean, I had better GPUs at the time, but that's where I did most of the work.
So, what kind of hardware right now do you have access to?
Anything I want, but what
Well, I mean, I don't mean what you could buy. I mean like direct access.
I've got
now,
a 66 an AMD 6600 in my main machine right now that I'm using for testing, and my newest Nvidia card is a 1080. I just haven't.
Damn, dude, I bought a 1080 Ti in like 2017 on day one. Oh man.
Yeah, it served me well.
I would say for development purposes, don't rely on it, but for development purposes, get your hands on like a 40 series card if you can.
Well, it sounds like now I
Because-
have a reason to buy one. I didn't really have one before.
Well, now you do, because I'm telling you, dude, there's some big stuff coming, and as a developer, there's some I'll probably be sending you maybe I'm gonna look into some stuff, and then I'm gonna send you some information. Your engine could quite possibly become one of the best AI engines you could build. Anything over a 5000 series AMD card, 20 series is for NVIDIA out of the loop, but 30, 40 series, the upcoming 50 series is going to be stupid expensive, so I would advise nobody buy that. But yeah, dude, you've got all of this in place, and there's some good stuff coming, and it's crazy, and I'm sure you've seen how crazy things are getting.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like basically like it's basically a really nice post processing effect. I mean, this is very crude here, but
I would not call it post processing. It's Well, with the new setup, the stuff that's in the NVIDIA developer program that I'm still part of, it's I don't even know what the term would be. I just go with generative algorithm. Um, Once you have a defined scene, you can then paint whatever you want on it. As you see here, they're just changing the style. You can do that in real time now on an RTX 40 series card. Anything with 12 gigs to 16 gigs or more of VRAM, you're good to go. The big problem that I've run into with some of my projects is if you try to do native resolution above 1080p, so you're going 1440p or 4K, the buffer fills up and you drop down to like 1 FPS. And so you have to use denoisers, upscaling, and everything else. I think that's the future, though. Does Ultra Engine in any capacity right now support upscaling to those degrees?
No, there's no special code in there for doing that.
My advice there would be implement FSR 3. Get it done. Don't do the frame generation. That's garbage. It's absolute trash. You're just going to introduce latency. But FSR is open source. You can implement it without much issue.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was actually wondering about that with FS. Okay, so yeah, I was looking at this last week, and it seemed like there was like my initial understanding was it was like it basically like interpolated between fewer frames, and so like you're saying like that's going to increase your latency, of course. And then I started looking at it when I actually downloaded the code. It was all talking about upscaling, which was something completely different.
There's two forms of FSR. I think FSR 3 is where they did the frame generation. The FSR code for frame generation is dog shit. And I apologize if you don't like the language, but it's bad. You introduce about 30 to 40 milliseconds or more of input delay for frame generation.
That's a huge amount.
40 or 4? Pretty bad.
40?
30 to 40 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's bad. I've been experimenting with it. Now, I would say ignore that. But what you want to do with the new FSR, it's about as good as DLSS2. I've done comparative analysis, per pixel analysis, you name it. It's great, but it's open source. You can implement it with any engine. And so the real benefit of these upscaling technologies is if your average user base is between 1920 by 1080 or 2560 by 1440 or something, they're going to get a good benefit if they're upscaling about 800p to 1080p. 720p, you get weird blurring artifacts on the upscale. Mm-hmm. Now, I from some of the source code, what I saw, it looked like it was bicubic upscaling, which is not good. But they have a few algorithms in there that are like per pixel analysis and all the rest. So it's good in the sense of you can almost double your performance for minimal. And again, you're not going to have DLSS AI algorithms that make things look better. A whole different thing. That's part of FSR 3 or whatever. But under FSR 2, you could implement it with any end, and it's really good. The what is it called? CSR or whatever, sharpening, really good algorithm. So I would say if you can, that's something you should look into to add to Ultra Engine because you'll get better performance. The average user, most people are not going to notice it, and you're going to get that benefit. Of course, I would not recommend you go RTX route outside of the NVIDIA basis, but you're not working in that sphere at this time. But I would say you should look into it. But everything from the 6000 series for AMD does have it does have AI chips on board for the cards. The recent 7000 series actually has acceleration for upscaling and everything else and denoising and all that. So that's something you definitely should look into in the next year to 2 years.
Okay, yeah, I like the thing I like about the FSR stuff is I actually like the fact that it's just an open source shader basically. As I understand it, from what I was looking at, it looked like it was like basically like temporal anti-aliasing.
Yep. It has as I said, it's bicubic upscaling, which not great, but it has a denoiser algorithm and a bunch of other stuff built in.
Okay.
It's useful. It's pretty good. I would definitely recommend you look into that, and you can. And the cool thing is, you said you had a 1080. You can run it on a 1080. You can run that on a 980. I've seen people do it on 760s. So
Yeah.
I implemented that with engine that shall not be named, but it works.
And also typically for us the okay, so the thing that Ultra tends to do extremely well at is when you have a large number of objects, because our renderer just doesn't have the overhead that most other renderers do. That's why our GPU utilization is so high. But once you get to where the pixel shader forms a bottleneck, if that's the bottleneck, then we do have a bit of an advantage with the forward renderer, but it's less extreme. And our lighting system too is very fast. But so if you're telling me that here's something that we can use to reduce the computational requirements of the pixel pipeline, then that's very relevant to us.
Well, here's the question. What are your thoughts about reducing that overhead by about 70 to 80%?
What overhead?
So when you have all that in the scene being rendered, what you're describing, you could drop that down if you have an upscaler. And the AMD upscaler, as I said, the average person isn't going to notice that. You could double someone's frame rate and they would still see the same image if they're playing on a 1080 screen.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm going to send you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you some of the AMD stuff regarding FSR and all that, because all of that is open source and you can do it. And if you can implement that, I gotta tell you, man, you've got a bright future, because most people are sitting 5 feet away from their screen or 10 feet away, sitting across the living room, or they're looking at a Steam Deck at 800p and they're rendering at 1080p.
Yeah, that's actually something that would benefit us disproportionately well, actually, because the pixel pipeline tends to be our bottleneck because nothing else, we don't bottleneck on anything else. Like that does first before anything else. With everyone else, their bottleneck actually tends to be their CPU. If you look at any Unity project, if you look at almost any VR project, look at their GPU utilization, and it's very low. Like Unity is usually like 30 or 40%. I was actually looking at Doom, the 2016 version. I wanted to analyze that a little bit, and I was actually like really surprised to see that their GPU utilization was only like 70 or 80%, which is, it shouldn't be that low. When you go up, usually with everything you run with Ultra, our GPU utilization is usually like in the 90s. And when you go from like 80% to 90% GPU utilization, your frame rate doesn't get 10% faster. It gets like three times faster. So yeah, that the FSR thing, I think that would actually be like something that would greatly benefit like our last remaining bottleneck until then something else becomes the bottleneck. But
I sent you. Yeah, you don't have to look at it right now. I sent you the couple of links. Look into it. Legitimately, FSR2. Again, you're gonna see, yes, it does have bicubic up, all that, but look into it. You'll see that it'll be exceedingly beneficial, because some of the work I've done dealt with that, and I'll say we made record sales because weaker hardware could run it and get good visuals out of it following the fact of implementation. That's about as basic as I could put it without
Okay.
breaking any restraining order. So
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. That like definitely clarifies it a bit for me.
oh, your engine is beautiful. I'll tell you that. I'm impressed by what I've seen. I just wish I could say more than I can say.
Okay.
Now I
Well,
was gonna your engine, Ultra engine, that's Vulcan, right?
yeah.
Okay. So you could if you look into now there's some open source Unreal packages and everything. You could look into are you gonna be moving into RTX support and all that in let's say the next 5 years?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Within 5 years.
Okay. Because there's some good stuff. I'm gonna be sending you probably in the near future information, links, etc. I can't say anything else, but
No, as long as it's all open source stuff, then I'll take a look at anything.
awesome.
So we'll have, like I said, I'll be finished with the graphics refactoring in a couple of days, and then after that I have a lot of testing to do, and depending on the results of that, we might have the big update for you guys Friday. That's going to add, it's going to fix some of the AMD compatibility issues. Actually, all of them. It's going to add MSAA into the rendering pipeline. It's going to revisit some of the post-processing effects, and those are improved. I think you'll see a little bit faster performance across the board, and I think you're going to see better engine stability. So some of those hard to track down, rare issues that are hard to reproduce, I think those are going to largely be solved. So this was a very interesting conversation with you all, as always. If there are any final questions, we can take those now.
In 10 years, where do you see yourself engine wise?
That's a good question. The Matrix will be the back end for the
Awesome.
Matrix and the front end.
So, another question then. In terms of VR support, where now again, I haven't really played with Ultra Engine much. I've only seen stuff through Reap and you. In terms of VR support, where are you at on all that? I know it has VR support, but where does the engine sit at this time that you would think it is?
VR is actually like there's not really that much to it to make a 3D game into a VR game. It's mostly just a matter of like the interface and controls. But we have like our support for VR. I mean, it's finished. There might be some other things we can add in the future, but
like access to the camera and such. There's some limitations. There's some like limitations to.
yeah, but it's actually surprisingly straightforward to like integrating VR was not. I mean, of course I've done it before, but it wasn't very difficult to add. The weirdest part about it is you have some funny projection matrices.
Yeah, I was going to say the when you're doing the calculations for input. So I take it all that's done then. So
Yeah, that was in 1.0.
oh,
I mean,
nice.
in the first, it's not we're actually not at 1.0 yet, but it was in the original. It was launched with VR support.
Yeah, it works. I tested it.
Okay. Now there is a question I have. You showed that screenshot earlier of something someone else posted, and it had the seaweed and everything. Now, does Ultra Engine have like underwater fog effects, and does it do caustics for light refraction and all that?
No, we've actually got some shader code from Leadworks that would be pretty easy to port over. So it's not very difficult. Klepto is just doing his own thing, and
Okay.
I just sit back and let him create, and try not to.
Now, on some of the screenshots you're showing here, I noticed if you look at the shoreline, when it comes to this, are you just rendering a flat plane or a sphere that's just like an intersection mesh, and then everything around is being rendered? Because I see it looks like there's foam on the water, or is that his work and not yours?
Well,
It's all his work.
It's his work, but yeah, it looks like he does have foam, and his ocean it looks kind of flat in this scene, but he has some other stuff that's showing like very nice waves using fast Fourier transform.
Nice.
Yeah, his stuff it looks really really good.
I apologize if I'm asking a lot of technical questions. I'm just trying to make sense of all
that's
this.
what the discussion is for. He might actually have a video. Let's see if he posted something here.
I think he just has gifts.
So if he's doing,
oh yeah, that's right.
You said he's doing a fast Fourier transform, so he must have a solution code where the vertices on the ground, he's calculating the intersection between his sphere or his plane that's touching it, and that's where he's rendering the foam, right?
I think the way so. This is JPEG. I think he's got a GIF too. Let me check his account.
I think you have to ask him directly on how everything works. I'm pretty sure he'll.
I mean, it looks fantastic. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's like, I was wondering, when you were showing it earlier, I had a lot of questions on it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It might take a while for the GIF to load because it's like 50 megabytes, I think.
Oh, he's clearly got a noise algorithm for the plane or whatever he's rendering on top of. And I mean, you could see that the water itself has waves on itself, so he must have a really interesting solution for that. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah, I look forward to its release. In Leadworks, the water actually it used the depth buffer to just check to see like how much space was behind the water plane, and then it adjusted the transparency based on that. You could also use that for foam. I like that approach because it's completely dynamic, but there's also I think if I remember right, what he was talking about was like rendering the scene from the top down, or else using the terrain height map, and that's going to give you probably going to give you like more accurate areas of foam. But yeah, that's really his project.
I can tell from the scene you're showing here, you've got what looks like a skybox or a cube map, and then he has the water, and then on the water it looks like a surface where you're defining some sort of motion vector, and then you have, you could see where it shifts. Now I'm wondering, is he doing that simply in the shader, or is he doing that by a texture? Is he using noise? Do you know?
I don't know all the details of it, no.
Okay. I mean, it's impressive. It's actually a really, really, really nice rendering. To me, when I look at this looks like he's using I can't think of the name of the algorithm now. It's a certain type of noise. It's not Perlin, it's something else. Because you could see where the foam on the water is fading in. Mm-hmm. There's a certain type of rendering that I was using before that does this, and I was using it to actually render spider webs of all things. It's very, very, very similar, and then it fades out. If he's using now, there's actually, interestingly enough, if you look at the left side of what you're playing, pause right there.
I can't pause it.
You can't pause it. Oh, it's a GIF. Okay, whatever. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a whatever. If you look on the land, and I'm pointing my finger, you can see it's actually rendering the foam over the land, which means the depth data for the scene is not. It's not able to detect what he wants it to detect.
Well, this is an old screen image too. This is from January.
Yeah.
So in other words, you have like the water is going through the terrain basically.
Yeah,
and
it's
appearing-
going through. It's
Yeah.
intersecting the mesh, the vertices of the island. Interesting. I have an idea of what he's doing. I just can't think of the name of it at this time. But interesting. It's a good solution. I mean, it looks beautiful. It's absolutely fantastic. But
I look forward to its release, as do you
I
all.
would love
I'm just
to
like,
look through
wow,
it.
this looks so good.
He's done something really incredible.
Yeah,
I
very
think
very
the
talented
big
guy.
issue is the foam. Wonder he's definitely got to be using some sort of noise algorithm for that though. It's I don't know what it is. I know because I was working on a project before that was for 3D waves and stuff, and I was using a certain algorithm, and it did not look as good as that. But the big issue I've noticed with my work in 3D rendering and everything else is how to define the scene and how the intersection between each of the triangles works. Even in ray tracing, one of the things I ran into, and it still drives me nuts, is people think, oh, if you cast a ray in the scene, then you know exactly the position of something, and you don't. And I
What do you mean?
don't know. So, well, I don't know if I should talk about that.
Okay, next week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say. Yeah. Someone else asked another question. I can't talk about that.
Okay.
I'm not going into that bit.
Who else have we
Yeah.
got here? Oh, Thirsty Panther. Hello. Welcome to the event.
I told you, Josh. You dragged me in. It's what's gonna happen.
Hi, Josh. Hello. Is this the first time that you've come to this? I don't remember you being here at like last week at least. Well, I am happy that you could join us. Let's see what he says. Too early normally. Okay. Yeah, so if there are no other questions, then we'll wrap up this weekend. It's always interesting. I come in here, thinking that I'm going to talk for 15 minutes about something, and then things go in a completely different direction. But it's always we always get really good results out of this, and then I'm glad that we're doing this, and I'm glad that I get to sit down and talk with you guys about the week's progress and future plans every weekend. So until next weekend, I will see you all later.
Bye.
Cheers, Josh. I'm
All right.
glad
Nice
you're
day.
doing all this. I got stuff to send you, but cheers, man.
All right, see you guys.